and we are going to keep this webinar to 45 minutes today. So don't worry that we're going to keep you all day. I promise we will not. Welcome. I am Shannon Miller with the Miller Elder Law Firm, and today we are talking life care planning. And I'm joined today by all four of our attorneys, which may be new information for some of you, at the Miller Elder Law Firm. We have Allison Carter, who is our newest addition. And I'm going to let everybody just jump around and give a little intro. Also cool to note that Genna has been promoted to executive officer of our firm. And so we are very excited to be here talking, the four of us, about life care planning. I am Shannon, and I am a board certified elder law attorney. I've been with the Miller Elder Law Firm forever and practicing elder law. And we started doing life care planning, really, we started about 5 years ago, but we got serious about it about 2 years ago. And our firm is now up to about 70 families in our life care planning model. So Genna, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself. And, also I'm a yoga teacher. Let's see, I have many pets who you may see on my remote workday jumping in and off the screen. I love breath work and cold plunging and learning about ways to stay healthy as we age. Genna?
I'm Genna, and I have been with the Miller Elder Law Firm for about 4.5 years, and I am so excited about this new role. Very thankful for it and just the opportunity to continue to do great work. When I started with the Miller Elder Law Firm, I was definitely more focused on estate planning, and I did come from the state attorney's office, so I did have trial experience, but I was starting with the building blocks. And in my progression here in the last 4.5 years, I have found that there were points along the way where I really felt like the issues that our clients were presenting us, there were gaps. Like there were more to the problems that they were presenting than we could solve at the time. So when we adopted the life care planning model, it almost seemed to embody exactly the missing piece. So when clients come to us now with issues, I really do feel it's a platform that we can address all of the clients' issues and along with their family in a lot of cases in a more holistic fashion. And we'll dig into that a little bit more. But outside of the work, I've got a couple of kids. They're 5 and 2. And I'm a Canadian, so we do head back to Canada fairly often. And I am just happy to be here and continue to do great work and talk about life care planning today. Amber?
Next up, my name is Amber Zeuner. I'm an associate attorney here at the Miller Elder Law Firm. I've been here for, going on, it's a little over 2 years now, this year actually. So it's been a wonderful experience, and I can't echo in my more brief time than Genna what she said as far as the ability to approach our clients and our families really with life care planning on a more holistic fashion and being able to guide and walk through more of those nuanced situations than jumping in and jumping out. And that's been one of the great joys that I've seen in stepping into life care planning. And I look forward to seeing it grow and how many more families we can help and bring in, and all of you here today. Outside of work, I like nature, running, parks and trails, hikes. Not a lot of traveling, but I want to. And just spending some quality time with friends, family, loved ones is a big plus for me.
And your cat. Don't forget your cats, Amber.
I'm not putting out that I'm a cat lady just yet.
Outed.
But I have been subject to the cat distribution system more than twice. I have 3 cats. Since Shannon brought it up, I am one of those people. I do walk my Maine Coon on his leash, and it is one of my prides and joys.
Pretty cool.
But I'll go ahead and pass it over to Allison, because we're so happy to have her join us here and, let her work in life care planning and see what the good work we do and take a step on our own.
Hi, my name is Allison. I'm a brand new associate. I'm really excited to be here, and I've already seen the positive impact we're able to have on families navigate through the process of aging and assisting them through whatever they need in this stage of life. I've sat in on consultations and conference calls, and I've been able to see the deep impact and how we're able to help those in need here. And I find this area of practice really rewarding and really meaningful. I am a former corporate attorney, so this is a shift and direction in my career, and I'm just so happy that I've made it. Outside of work, I have a golden retriever that I'm absolutely obsessed with, and we do like long walks and, all the dog things. I have a partner who works at Shands, so that's a big part of our life, just having a partner in medicine. And I'm just really happy to be here.
Thanks, Allison. Okay, let's dive in. And I think the way this is going to go today, we've got a couple of things that we want to hit on, but we're just going to let the conversation flow because I think all four of us, even Allison with kind of a new perspective on what, just objectively what she sees as she's kind of new to this area of practice and watching our clients walk through it. But there's really four pillars to the life care planning model. The first is estate planning. The second is exploitation protection. The third is healthcare advocacy. And the fourth is long-term care planning or asset protection planning. And that's really, that's it. That's all four of the things that we cover. The program lasts a year. So we enter into an agreement with our clients, really with their families, to be of service to them for an entire year. I will tell you that typically people stay in our program. They renew and we renew. So everybody kind of stays usually until we see one or both of our clients, if it's a couple, die. They like to stay with us. So, but as we dial into what that looks like, I want to talk a little bit about the estate planning part, and I'll just take this one on. So, estate planning is typically a trust-based plan or a will-based plan. We have kind of this third option, which is, do we need to do Medicaid planning right now? It's like, is this a time where we're going to design your plan to get one spouse qualified for Medicaid? And that usually means impoverishing the sick spouse and parking the assets in the name of the well spouse to get them qualified. So, those are really the three options that we look at when we're talking about estate planning, and it shifts. Sometimes we design a plan that starts off as a trust-based model. We maybe make some amendments to the trust because things change. We fund the trust. We may then shift to a design that's Medicaid planning, a Medicaid planning design. Then we may move back to a trust model once that sick spouse dies. So, there's so much flexibility in the estate planning that we do inside the life care plan. And there's never any charge, never any additional charge for changing a plan once you come in. So it's a one fee system. You pay one fee that covers you for the entire year. And then when you renew, you will pay an additional fee for that renewal year that is significantly less than the first year's fee. But on the exploitation protection, that's something unique to our firm. Not all life care planning firms use exploitation protection as one of their pillars. We do that because we're kind of experts in it. We do a lot of work in the realm of exploitation recovery and protection. So we're very good at really helping people protect themselves, know the warning signs, and then we use an app called Careful. We enroll all of our clients in the Careful app to protect them from exploitation. But I think one of the really super unique things about the life care planning model is really the third element, which is the healthcare advocacy. We use elder care coordinators, and they are our boots on the ground for really assessing healthcare issues as they come up, knowing how to advise our clients when it's time to move into a facility, helping them plan for a death event, really being that healthcare eyes and ears to help them navigate through that part of life, you know, with the best healthcare at the best price, keeping them in the best placements. And Genna, tell us a little bit about elder care coordinators. Like what do they do and how do they serve us in that role?
They are the missing piece. They are the missing link that we did not have before. And as attorneys, we didn't go to school to necessarily be the most compassionate individuals, nor are we, our training isn't necessarily in how to age in place. How is it safe to age in place? What is the healthcare side of it? So our elder care coordinators um, are basically our care experts, our healthcare advocates. So they're going to build that rapport with the client and the client's family. They're going to come out, they're going to meet the client in their home. And we have people come into the program at all different stages. Pre-crisis, younger individuals, thriving, living at home, all the way up to people bordering on either needing in-home care or moving to a facility. And sometimes it's difficult to navigate exactly which where you are on the continuum of staying at home and then facility care. So the elder care coordinators really offer an objective, expert opinion on that. And it's not to say that they're going to come in and say, okay, this is unsafe, we must go to a facility. They're just going to offer some suggestions or recommendations. They are also going to be the healthcare advocate in the event of hospitalization, that somebody has a fall and they were at home and they've had a fall and now they're in hospital recovering. And what's next with that recovery? What rehab centers should they go to? Because there are great ones and there are not so great ones. The other thing that they can assist with is, with regard to Medicare, one client recently, it was just even advising that they had a Medicare Advantage plan. And in order to go to a different kind of rehab, they needed a traditional Medicare plan. And so their suggestion was the rehab facility that this client currently was at, they had enough time to switch them from Advantage to traditional so that they reduced and almost eliminated the copay. So they have a lot of expertise there. And then also when it comes to if a family member is out of state or traveling, our elder care coordinators can certainly go out, boots on the ground, be a set of ears and eyes.
And tell me about that, Genna. You were telling me yesterday a story
Yes.
about this exact scenario. And
Mhm.
let's tell our audience about that. Like, what are the real things that our elder care coordinators do for people?
So we have a client who was in facility care. She was in a skilled nursing facility, and she had involvement from her family members for the most part, the day to day. But the daughter wanted to go on vacation because everybody still has lives and outside of just being caregivers. So when the daughter was out of the country, she asked us, our elder care coordinators, namely, to go into the facility and just check on mom to see how she was doing while daughter was out of the country. So our elder care coordinator went in. Everything was looking great. She kind of did a visual body scan because one thing that we do know to look for in facilities is bed sores. And she noticed a red wound on this woman's leg. It wasn't broken or anything like that, but she noticed that, called the nursing staff. Nursing staff identified that, yes, it's red. Yes, she had a fever. So the next day we were able to start this woman on antibiotics. And by the time daughter came home, mom's bed sore had been identified, treated, and it was actually on the upswing, on the healing. And those things can escalate so quickly that in that time that daughter was away, if it hadn't been identified, you could have definitely had a more serious situation.
Yeah, that's so great. Thank
Mhm.
you for that. Okay, Amber, tell us about this long-term care pillar. We talk about our clients coming in and they have one spouse who's sick and one spouse who's well, and sometimes it's a single person, but what are the Medicaid myths out there that exist that we really need to dispel? Like all the
Yeah.
time we're telling people about these things that are just not accurate that they believe.
It's so often we get clients who call in and they've, done their own research online or they've seen someone talk about different ways to get qualified. And one of the most common ones, there's two really that come to mind in particular, are IRAs, for instance. I can't tell you how many times I've cringed just because we're having a conversation and someone is telling me they need to drain their IRA to get the health care that they need. That is one of the more common myths because that's actually an exempt asset in Florida. So we don't want to be draining those. So long as you're taking your required minimum distributions, though, make sure you're taking those and not more. Another really common concern people have is their homestead in particular. They're concerned about having to sell their home and using that money to spend down in order to get qualified. But that's also not something that we have to take care of as far as getting Medicaid healthcare qualification goes. Homesteads are exempt too. So those are two of the more common ones that we often have people come in and talk to us about that I'm really
And
happy to say we don't have to do.
yeah. And I mean, what is the typical planning like when you have two couples come in? Let's just say hypothetically that we had a couple come in and we had a husband who was sick. I hate to say it, but
Mhm.
that's usually who's sick. And we have a wife who's well, who may be significantly younger than the husband. And they have, like, let's just say they have retirement assets, they have a homestead, but they also have some separate investment assets that are not retirement assets. And let's just say it's $300,000. What would you be recommending for that couple?
Yeah, there's a couple other tools we have at our disposal in Florida that we're really happy to have a good legislature on. Namely, some of those would be a SPIA, a single payer immediate annuity. If we have a well spouse who's out in the community and we're looking to get care for our sick spouse, then that's one option. And then there's also what we call a personal services contract that we can put in place. Essentially, for the time that you are spending helping your loved one, usually a family member, child, daughter, son, or a sibling, friend, even sometimes, if that's who's close to you. But we essentially can put this agreement in place that they're going to make sure that you're taken care of in the facility and that you're
And
being checked in on, and
and would
they
they need to would they
transfer.
need to spend down that money? So you could actually get them qualified with those assets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly. Yeah.
Yes.
Either through a combination of those two options and a third, which would be rental income producing property if they
Right.
wanted to not do one of the others, or through our conversations, we found that one of those other options wasn't appropriate for their particular situation, or whichever one is best. But it could be a combination, it could be one or the other. It's a very individualized plan.
And I think the other myth that's quite common is people say, oh, I'm over the income limit. Like I can't qualify because I'm over the
Yes.
income limit. So what about that scenario?
We also have a tool for that in Florida. It's what we call a qualified income trust. So we have, say, in our situation here, a sick spouse, the husband, who's needing long-term care, and a well spouse at home. And together they have an income that goes above the allowed amount. For a couple, I think it's around 3,500, give or take, and it varies as the years go by. But what you can do is if they say make, 6,000 a month, we create what's called this qualified income trust, where we would essentially take the income and put it into this trust that would allow us to qualify for Medicaid because we end up giving the income. All the income does go to Medicaid, that's true, but Medicaid has less of a bill to pay at the end of the day for the facility because of that. So we like it, they like it, and we're able to get qualified.
That's great. That's great information. And so, okay. So,
Another If I
right.
could jump in,
Yeah.
another one too is when
Yeah.
we
Go
have
ahead.
a community spouse like that, another consideration that may come in is that the community spouse doesn't have to be impoverished. They can have their own resource allowance and a much higher asset limit too. So that's also a consideration that would come in with those planning strategies.
Right. So they can have their own income and they can have a little over 154,000 in assets, right? So CSRA is what that's called.
Exactly.
So, okay. So basically these clients come in, if one gets sick and needs long-term care Medicaid, then we might do those strategies. But we also have med waiver, right? And
Yes.
right. And so med waiver is a way to potentially stay at home. It also is a way to use the available assisted living facilities that accept med waiver in our community as well. And so, what our life care planning model does is it kind of takes you in, you and your family, and it says, what is best for you right now? And if that changes, then we change as well. So you might not need any of those services right now. Or we may say, let's start in med waiver with home community-based services. Let's then move to an assisted living as this progression of this disease might go. But all of that is covered under this umbrella of life care planning, as well as, and I know poor Amber knows about this a lot, like if that Medicare discharge notice comes before the 100 days is up. So, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, it's like you go to the hospital, you're discharged to a Medicare bed, rehab bed for about 100 days. If they start to say at day 24 or 28, usually that's when it is, the facility says, you are no longer improving, then, we are there with you to fight that discharge because that is not the standard for discharge. So Amber has become kind of an expert on that. And, anything else about the 100-day issue? Amber, you want to?
Yeah, it's a process. It's one that I do enjoy because it can be so confusing. The Medicaid portion, med waiver, but also the Medicare side. Being able to help our families walk through that and just reassure them that either we're going to go through the whole appeal process and we're going to fight for their right to have their care and make sure that they're taken care of, or sometimes it's putting a plan together. What's the best option for financial resources? If we want to stay there longer, or if we want to just go home sooner. It's an individualized plan, but being able to have that conversation and help walk them through that process and then do the appeals when we really know they need to be there for their therapy, it can make a life-changing difference.
That's awesome.
The other example I want to give, there's so many different stages, as we've mentioned, that people come to us at. So talking about even just the difference between Medicaid long-term care and Medicaid waiver.
Yeah.
So the scenario that we had last week, and it's, there's many that you could pull from, but this particular client was at home, living fully independently. She had a partner, but ended up coming down essentially with either a virus or a UTI that really deteriorated her rapidly and put her in hospital. So she goes in hospital, she gets cleaned up, gets discharged to a rehab. And now the family it was two sons, they don't necessarily have the expertise to say, what is reasonably next for mom? Can we safely get her home at this point? How much or how little is rehab going to help? And if she can't go home, what do we do next? And I think in those circumstances, it's so helpful to have the input of the elder care coordinators and also the family, because everybody has a different perspective. And to get everybody's input to find a solution is so incredibly helpful. So the discussion that we had with this family was, okay, so if she can go home, we're going to have to bring care in. But frankly, right now, it's looking like she's going to need some type of facility care. But the discussion there was then centered around, are we looking at assisted living or are we looking at skilled nursing? And so long as this woman could stand to transfer, the discussion that we had was, let's try to move towards an assisted living facility because it's more homey. You can bring your furniture. There's more independence, right? And then the thing about that is because we're coming into it a little bit pre-crisis, many assisted living facilities that take Medicaid waiver will also keep somebody as they progress. And so you don't have to necessarily always go to skilled nursing. We can bring in hospice. They can bring in additional levels of care in that homier, nicer setting. So you may never have to get to skilled nursing, but sometimes it's too far gone and we have no choice.
Right.
But anyways, it's those sorts of discussions that are not so straightforward.
And I mean, I want to go back, Genna, two things that I want to ask you about. First of all, like in your experience, and I know we're on the same page with this. Clients mostly want to stay where?
Home.
Right. Everybody wants to stay home. Everybody wants to die in their sleep at home. Everybody's family has promised mom and dad that they're going to keep them home. And some people do it. Some people like, they stop their lives to take care of their parents, and it can be a huge burden. And that caregiver burnout is a real thing, and we see it a lot. In fact, it's usually when they come to us, it's because the caregiver burnout is happening, or the spouse who's been taking care of that sick spouse full time goes down. And that's when they finally realize that they need our services. But the other thing that I wanted to ask you about was, as a prime example of some of the other work we do with just identifying issues, like you talked about our elder care coordinator spotting the wound for needing a bed sore, spotting the bed sore issues. But we also do other advocacy. So let's just say hypothetically, in that situation that the facility would not allow a third-party wound care specialist to come in. And they said, listen, here's the deal, family. We have people that work on our staff who have certifications in wound care treatment. We think it's okay to not have a third-party wound care specialist come in to treat that wound. What kinds of advocacy have you seen us do in those scenarios, Genna?
So every resident is entitled to choose their doctors. So that's sort of the legal thing that we know about. So typically the triage that happens is the family's in contact with our elder care coordinator, and the elder care coordinator knows at that juncture, well, now it's time to get some legal support to the healthcare advocacy. So typically we end up either calling a care plan meeting, or sometimes it's, I've been there where we've actually just done a meeting with the doctor and the family directly to say, what's the documentation? When there is a bed sore, when was it identified?
What stage is it? They're
right,
so reluctant to tell us what stage it is.
Yeah, so reluctant. But then, so it's the ECC, the attorney, the family, the doctor, or whoever nursing staff there. And it's the push to say, hey, they've got a right to choose who they want in here. So we're going to use one of our third-party wound care suggestions.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just going to add on to that. Like, we've come into cases where there was a stage 4 bed sore, which killed the person. Like, we enter the scene and we find out that they haven't even staged the wound. We finally get the third-party wound care specialist in. They take a look at it. It's down to the bone. It's like a gaping hole, it's terrible if you've ever seen a stage 4 bed sore. But there's very little we can do at that point. I mean, they're going to get septic and they're likely going to die with a stage 4. So, we got to prevent that, and it can happen very quickly. And, there's some, liability protection there that the nursing home is engaging in. And we just want our person to get better. Like, if it's a stage 3 or a stage 4, we need to know that so that we can give this person the best quality of life. And if there's an option to get better, then we're going to try and do that. And I think that's the kind of advocacy that people feel very tentative about. Like, they don't know when they're supposed to push. They don't know that, they can get their own healthcare providers to come in. They don't know that Medicare will pay the facility the wound care dollars, or Medicare will pay a third-party wound care specialist who comes in with a vacuum to clean the wound, who's going to help find you a bed that rotates you from side to side so you're offloading the wound every 2 hours. I mean, those are the kinds of things, that's the kind of information that we're going to bring to you, or our elder care coordinators are. I've learned all that from our elder care coordinators, just being out there in the trenches.
What they have always said, our elder care coordinators is that, you know, they had prior careers too in geriatric care management, professional guardianships, social work, you know, various backgrounds and lifetimes of careers and experience. But the hurdle that I have heard again and again that they have experienced is that they can do a lot, but eventually they come up sometimes against either bureaucracy or legal guns, and with no avenue to combat that. So then they love the fact that we can come in and be support to them, and know when to push and how to push.
Yeah. And I mean, we have filed Agency for Healthcare Administration complaints before. You know, we don't like doing it, but when there is a clear violation and we see it, we are, you know, really, we have duties to our clients to report those things. And, you know, that can be challenging for us too, because we have clients that we need to place in facilities. But when it comes to our loyalty to a facility versus our loyalty to a client, we're always going to pick our client. So even when we bump heads with facilities that, you know, have a lot of our other clients, you know, sometimes what we do actually works to the benefit of every person who is at that facility, because we hold them accountable to providing good services to our clients. Okay, Allison, you're like new kid on the block. And, you know, I would like to know, like, what have you seen so far? Just being kind of coming in as an objective viewer. Do you have anything, you know, any stories to share, anything that you've seen in your short life here, just kind of viewing the life care planning model?
I just think it's really important to have a plan before there is a crisis so that you're able to go into assisted living and that the sick person is still able to make their own decisions and communicate, I want this person to help me primarily and I trust them the most, and being able to advocate for themselves before whatever disease they have makes them not be able to make their own decisions. And it can get a lot more complicated to help somebody when they no longer can make their own decisions, and it causes legal problems and expenses. So it's important for families and people who are facing some sort of health condition or aging that they meet with us or any sort of attorney that they want and come with a plan for all of the challenges that they're going to have in the future.
Yeah. And I'll just share a quick story. I'm actually going to my little clients. It's not a memorial, it's a celebration of life. He passed away, just an amazing man. And it's tomorrow actually. And after he turned 100 years old, I went to see him on his birthday. I happened to be where he was living at the time. And I thought, you know, he's on hospice now. I don't know if he's going to recognize me. I don't know what this experience is going to be like, because he's definitely nearing the end now. And I went in to see him. His door was decorated. Like, people had been coming in and out all day to visit with him. And he was doing a word find. And he was like, Shannon, I need you to help me with this word. And he had a word that he wanted me to help him find. So like, I got the chance to sit there with him. The hospice nurse was there, and, you know, we engaged, and he was laughing and he was telling me stories, and he was just living his best life. Like, he was just having a good time. And I think what that means is that we are doing something right, even when it comes to the death event. Like, we're helping people have their best life, even when it's at the end. And I think that there's definitely a difference in living the longest life possible and then living the best life possible until you die. And that's really our goal, is to find out, like, what is the thing that makes you happy in your life, and how can we make those things happen as long as possible. And then when it is time for you to go, how can we have that ending happen without a lot of suffering? You know, how do we bring in the people that you need to have closure with, or that you want to be present? How do we honor those wishes? What are those wishes? Tell us now, so we can make sure that when we get to that point where you're actually leaving this world, that we do that with your wishes, no one else's. Because I think a lot of times what can happen is, especially, you know, families that don't like talking about death, and they've never had the discussion about, what does dad's death, what does he want it to look like? We
Mhm.
get there and there's confusion. People are like, well, no, he would want the feeding tube and he would want, the brain surgery when he's 96 years old. Like, we don't know until you tell us. So having those discussions, we also promote a lot of discussions about death. And then we try and get people to focus on the experience of dying, with their loved one, instead of being worried, when do we need to deliver the next medication? Have all the bills been paid? We try and get the family to focus on being present and going back into those roles of being a family member, whether it's a spouse or a child, really engaging with that person, even if they can't understand you or hear you, or they have dementia for whatever reason, just being present with that person and trying to enjoy that time together. Because it really can be quite beautiful. And, I always say that and people are kind of like, what? But there are magical things that happen when we look for them during that time. And we want that for you guys. We really do. So, part of the program is really helping people to understand what's coming and like being transparent about that. If that's what our clients want, and we don't force it on anybody, it's their journey. We get to support them in whatever it is that their journey, what they want their journey to look like. But oftentimes it's just about having those discussions and making it okay to talk about. And then they talk about it more. But we have seen some really beautiful things happen towards the very end of life. And it can be a really amazing time. Okay. What have I missed, you guys? Oh, one thing I
Oh,
did want to mention. Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Genna.
no, there was just a different another scenario that I just wanted to share
Yes.
briefly, because we've talked a lot about supporting families and getting families on board, but we also have situations where we have solo seniors that need to be supported. And we had a case recently after Hurricane Helene, where a couple was without power. They had no next of kin, no children, no family close by, but they did have some very dear friends, and a neighbor who came to check on them, got them some, medical assistance. They did need to be hospitalized because they were dehydrated and without power for quite some time.
Oh.
But anyways, they ended up coming to us, and it was kind of a different type of meeting, because it wasn't a meeting where we're trying to get families on board and understanding and communicating. These people had no one. So we were able to come in, um, get a professional fiduciary on board to kind of be an agent, and then we actually got them into a really wonderful facility just in time for Thanksgiving. And they are just in such a better place than where they were after that hurricane, and probably for many, many months that they were living before. And I don't know that we as attorneys in isolation could have achieved that result for these people without our elder care coordinators.
And I
Um,
want to say about that case, because it was right before Thanksgiving. And I know you and our elder care coordinators like took time away from your families to decorate their room at this beautiful facility and to make sure that all the furniture got moved in properly so that when they got transferred from that other facility that was not maybe so great, they ended up walking in and having everything done for them. And these are people that didn't have trusted contact support people. These were friends and neighbors who basically saw them in a situation and stepped in, and we were able to make this happen for them. And Genna, you went above and beyond. And that's this thing, is that we will do what needs to happen to make sure that our clients are okay and that they do well. And I think the other thing is, when you have parents who are here in Florida and you're remote, so you're somewhere else, and you don't know what's happening and there's nobody returning your phone calls. Like, if you're in the program, you call us and we figure out what's happening, if that means a wellness check or if it means contacting law enforcement to do a wellness check, like we will do that. That's the other thing about this. This is so family oriented. Like, normally we're meeting with the clients. We never even meet the family, but with the life care planning model, the family comes in usually at the very beginning. Now the clients get to make that decision. If they're like, no, my kids stole money from me, or, we're estranged, Like, obviously, those are situations where we're not going to bring family in. But in most cases, we engage family in the program right away. And as mom starts to have issues, they can call the elder care coordinator directly, and they have their own relationship with the elder care coordinator. Well, mom's telling you this, but this is really what's happening. And so, you know, we can kind of make those adjustments based on really what is really happening, you know, what's happening out there that we need to dial in on. Okay. The only other thing that I had on my list was the fact that we know the best and worst facilities in town. So like, you're in that discharge at the hospital, you've been there because you broke your hip, and now we need to know, and the discharge nurse is telling you, okay, you can go to these two facilities have open beds, right? Because they want to get you out of the bed. Their job is to get you out of the bed, and they know that those two facilities have open beds, maybe because they're not the best facilities. So we might take a look at those two facilities and be like, are you kidding me? No, you're not going there. There actually are two facilities in town that are ranked as the worst 25 facilities in the state of Florida. So, you know, we're never going to let you go there. And we are going to try and push you or get you into the top 5 facilities that we have on our list. And we do maintain a list, and sometimes the people on those lists change because facilities sometimes are doing better and sometimes they're not. So, you know, we kind of really keep, because we have so many clients and so many different facilities, we really do keep active on who's doing well and who's not. And then we also have kind of a good situation where we can get people sometimes sooner off a waiting list, because we provide them with more information about our clients than typically they're going to get from a regular person who's sitting on the waiting list. Like, we have these, you know, this whole thing where our elder care coordinator goes in and does an assessment, and we can provide that assessment to the facilities sometimes to jump the wait list, which has been helpful in the past. Plus, sometimes they know us and they know they can ask us certain questions about our clients, and, you know, we'll get approval from them, but sometimes we can disclose certain things about them. Like, there's a situation right now where people don't want to take people with Lewy body dementia, right? It's like they just have this, we're not taking somebody with Lewy body dementia. So like, we can sometimes work through that by saying, look, we're gonna try and explain to you why, even though they have this diagnosis, they're not going to be causing trouble at your facilities. And sometimes we can get those exceptions made. So that is a lot about life care planning. Anything, you guys, that we need to add about this?
I think we
covered
probably
it
dumped
all.
more information than
Okay.
people can
Yeah,
digest
and
right now.
I don't see any questions. I do see a bunch of participants. If you guys have a question and you want to put it in the Q&A, we're happy to take that. Otherwise, I think that, you know, we should just do a little wrap up. I will say that the way that our firm works is, if you want to come in for a life care planning consult, those are in person. We do encourage everybody to participate in that. That means, you know, if you have a special friend who you'd like to come and that person is your trusted contact, we'd love for them to participate in that first meeting that we get to have with you, to kind of hear about your situation, figure out what your worries are, what your goals are, and see if it's a good fit. And so if you call our office, they will do an initial intake and really assess whether or not you're good for the life care planning model. Of course, we have also regular estate planning models that can include something called the client care program, that is like a little bit like, you're might not be ready for it right now, but you might be ready for it down the road. And so staying in the client care program can give you another option for really kind of just staying close to the nest. So yeah, I really encourage you, if you're somebody who has parents or a loved one, or it's you yourself, there's no harm in giving our office a call and find out if this is the right thing for you. All right. Thanks, you guys. I hope everyone is having a lovely day. It's beautiful outside, and thanks for joining us. I'm Shannon Miller.
Bye, everybody.